The Saga of the Flying Butterfly. Copyright 2025 by Victor Yojel. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical means without the prior authorization of the author except in cases of small references for non-commercial use permitted under the copyright law. Cover design, Victor Yojel. Preface. All of us at some point in our lives have been exposed to difficult situations that, besides being painful, seem to have no solution. These experiences nevertheless push us to transform ourselves, to leave our comfort zone and become a better person. Our grandparents or wise men of antiquity knew that stories, legends, aphorisms contained transcendental wisdom that could inspire, guide, or give us advice in moments of anguish. Great modern therapists like Dr. Milton Erickson, 1901 to 1980, used precisely the richness of metaphor to generate a positive change in the lives of his clients. The purpose of this story is to educate and motivate through the teachings that the butterfly leaves us on her journey to reach the top of the mountain. It is dedicated to all those who, with their example, have overcome adversity in life and become a source of inspiration and guidance for others. God bless you all. The author. Content. Chapter 1. From Suffering to Freedom. Chapter 2. The Beginning of the Journey. Chapter 3. The Old Tree. Chapter 4. The River's Advice. Chapter 5. The Butterflies of the Night. Chapter 6. Blackbirds. Chapter 7. Encounter with Death. Chapter 8. The Witness of Time. Chapter 9. In Darkness There is Hope. Chapter 10. A Friendly Spider. Chapter 11. The End of the Journey. Chapter 1. From Suffering to Freedom. Her past was disgusting, dark, and despicable. Other animals gossiped, saying, "Do not speak to her." But now that she has changed, she believes she is the most beautiful among us. She shamelessly opens her wings to the wind, flaunting her bright colors with the sole purpose of making us jealous. How dare she? The animals talk to each other with so much anger. The butterfly, fresh out of her cocoon, was still confused despite the fact that within, an intense and unknown joy flooded her. In her memory were still fresh images of the pain that she suffered when she had to crawl in the dirt with her small and fragile body when she was just a caterpillar. At that time, she recalled with great sadness other animals wanted to eat or mistreat her, and she had to constantly hide because they only saw in her a succulent bite or a target for mockery. In times of danger, the insects that resided in the same place never helped her, and the poor, lonely, and sad caterpillar hid among the rocks finding protection from the rain and fellow neighbors who often laughed at her. One day, the caterpillar felt like dying. The pain in her body was so intense that she thought that dying was the best thing that could happen. Distressed by that feeling, she remained quiet, hanging from the branch of a bush that provided a bit of shade as she became a chrysalis. Soon after, death arrived. Her whole body was writhing in pain, and the only thing that she asked God was to end this terrible experience quickly and take her to heaven, where she believed life would be more peaceful. Patiently, she suffered in silence. She did not reject her fate, she did not curse, she did not blame others. She only clung to the belief that one day she would be with God, source of all creation. Finally, it was over. The pain was replaced by a feeling of intense happiness, and the open chrysalis began to fill with a wonderful light that inspired her to reach it. It must be the light of God, she thought. With great effort, she decided to move in the direction of the luminosity that, with its golden sparkles, called her. Surprised, she realized that it was easy. She felt a new body and strength that she couldn't have imagined owning. A little later, she left this dark and limited place and very happily wanted to embrace the wind. To her surprise, she was no longer a small and weak worm, but her body now possessed wings that reflected colors like those of a rainbow. The blue sky stretched before her eyes, and the impulse to reach it filled her soul. In an act of faith, she jumped into the vast space in front of her and, merging with the horizon, flew away from this place saturated of bad memories. She flew farther than ever and reached other sky. Since then, she is only remembered as the great flying butterfly. Chapter 2. The beginning of the journey. With her new clothes that radiated many colors, the flying butterfly happily set out on her journey. As she climbed higher and higher in the sky, she could see what she once thought was her only world. Below, the insects were astonished when they saw her flying so high. In the same way, the rocks and trees became smaller and smaller until everything looked like tiny spots on the ground. Her heart told her that she should follow that horizon. She still did not know where she was going, but her inner compass was guiding her to a fantastic place, where unbeknownst to her many adventures awaited her. Once she rose high enough, she could see a beautiful mountain in the distance. "I'll go there," she thought silently, and climbing even higher, she realized that the wind was in her favor and, speaking to him, asked for help. The wind whispered in her ear, explaining that in fact her wings had been made to complement each other. He did not know if God had first created the wind and then the wings, but one could not exist without the other. In addition, he said, flirting with her, "Admiring your beautiful, colorful wings, I have no other alternative but to take you wherever you want to go." The flying butterfly was very happy to find a good friend. She closed her eyes and let herself be carried by a current of warm air that the wind gently provided. The butterfly did not know how long she had been traveling, but in what seemed only a moment she reached the base of a majestic mountain that was populated by a large number of leafy trees loaded with many flowers. Honey abounded in this paradisiacal place, and a delicious fragrance filled the atmosphere. She ate a little of the exquisite nectar and decided to rest. The night fell, and she wisely thought that after that long trip it was better to wait until the next day to continue her journey. Chapter 3. The Old Tree. The morning was cool. The sun was rising slowly among the branches of those leafy trees, creating a festive atmosphere. "Good morning," said the flowers. "Good morning," replied the butterfly. Intrigued by their politeness and attentiveness, she decided to ask, "What is the name of this place?" The flowers, enjoying the sun, began to sing, ignoring the butterfly. "The sun gives us life, and in the beautiful night, the moon gives us delight." The flowers kept singing happily. The flying butterfly spotted a very old tree in the distance. The moss hanging from his branches almost completely covered him, giving the old tree an appearance of fatigue and wisdom. The butterfly approached him respectfully. "Good morning, Mr. Tree," she said. The tree did not answer. The sun had not warmed him enough for him to react instantly. After repeating the greeting and waiting a little longer, the butterfly saw the tree becoming alive. "Good morning," he responded softly. "What is the reason for your visit? We rarely see beings like you around here. Are you a flower that learned to fly?" "No, Mr. Tree," answered the butterfly. "I am not a flower that flies. They are only my friends, well, almost my sisters. They are the ones who prepare my food, but we dress the same. We love bright colors." "Ah, I see," said the old tree with a surprised expression on his face. "Where are you going?" he asked with curiosity. "Well, I'm going to the top of the mountain. I feel my destiny is there." "It's an impulse I cannot resist," said the butterfly calmly. "The top of the mountain," replied the tree. "And what do you hope to find in it?" "Well, I do not know," replied the butterfly. "I only have the need to reach it." The old tree started talking to himself. Why would someone want to make such a long trip? He was born in the same place and was happy. He did not feel the need to explore other places. "Stay with me," the tree implored. "I would love to have you as my company. I have not produced flowers for a long time, and your presence as a flying flower would bring joy to my existence." I'm very sorry, answered the butterfly. I must continue even if I do not know the way. But it can be dangerous, the tree insisted. I've heard that those who dare to make that trip never come back. The butterfly was not convinced. She asked again for his help, inquiring if he had heard from someone else how to get to the top. Okay, follow the river, the tree answered after a long silence. I know his mother is up there on the mountain top. The river will take you to your destination, he said, closing his eyes with great sadness. Chapter 4. The River's Advice. The butterfly took off to discover the river. The forest was dense, and even from high up in the sky it was difficult to find him. However, she considered that if there were plants, flowers, and trees, there must be water, because nothing would survive without water. The butterfly searched and searched until in the distance she saw a reflection. It was barely a silvery thread that moved gracefully on the ground. She descended quickly and found the source of water that produced a beautiful sound when it hit the rocks. The butterfly had never seen a river. It was something beautiful. Its crystalline waters flowed harmoniously even when the river encountered obstacles. Drink, drink, the river exclaimed insistently as soon as the butterfly approached him. The butterfly hesitated. She had never drunk from a river before. Her only source of nutrition was the nectar of flowers. Drink, drink, the river repeated insistently again. Excuse me, sir. I am neither thirsty nor hungry, and how can you allow me to take something from your body? Replied the butterfly a little bewildered. The river laughed heartily, evidently overflowing with a good sense of humor. You cannot take anything away. Without me, you would not be alive. I am the one who transports the essence of life in your body. God gave me the task of nurturing all beings. I do not belong to anyone, and there are no obstacles that I cannot overcome. If I'm ever quiet in a lake, it's because I want it so. I can transform myself and fly higher than many birds. I can be harder than a rock or assume any shape in nature. I am agile, fluid, and cheerful, and without me life, as we know, would not be possible. My essence is water, even when I have different names like river, lake, pond, or ocean. Calmly explained the river. The butterfly was impressed by his wisdom. She realized that even though in his journey the river had to face many obstacles, including rocks of all sizes and trunks of fallen trees, instead of complaining the river produced music, a sign that he was always happy. The sound was so pleasant, she thought. The flow of the water helped her relax and rendered her even more meditative. Mr. River, thank you for your advice. I just want to ask you if you would lead me to the top of the mountain. I do not know why, but I have a deep desire to reach it. The river, very happy to be able to help, said, Follow my body, I know the way, but do not judge me when you see that, as you climb to the top of the mountain, I become smaller. This is because my mother lives at the top, and of course, children are born this way, small, almost invisible, but as we follow our destiny and move away from our mothers, we grow and become stronger. When I arrive at the sea, that is my final destination. I am a very powerful river, but at the top I am just a child. The flying butterfly thought of her own mother. She did not remember her touch, the loving care, her childhood. Where could she be? She asked, somewhat perplexed. Chapter 5. The Butterflies of the Night. The butterfly did not know what awaited her. Until this moment in her journey, what she knew was that everything was beautiful. There were many flowers, plants, an old tree, the river. She continued flying until she decided to spend the night inside a crevice on a rock that she found very cozy. The night was illuminated by a beautiful moon, and she remembered her friends, the flowers, which undoubtedly were singing, "The sun gives us life. And in the beautiful night, the moon gives us delight." Tired, she fell asleep for a long time only to be awakened by a strange rustling noise. Something moved among the dry leaves that were in the cave that she was using as a bed. The sound could be heard closer. She opened her eyes, but could not identify the source of the noise. She had not felt fear for so long, but something worried her. Finally, and very near her, she discovered a pair of big eyes that looked at her with curiosity. The startled butterfly faced a dark-colored warren easily camouflaged with the night. His eyes shone as if a reddish flame burned inside of them. "Who are you?" asked the butterfly timidly. "Ah," shouted the worm, "what a pleasure to meet you. I had always been told that there were angels like you, dressed in many colors." "An angel?" The butterfly laughed. "Yes," the worm exclaimed, "my older sisters fly like you, but they do not have nice colors. Their wings are brown and black. If you look outside, you will see them dancing in the moonlight. They have promised me that one day, if I behave well and see an angel, I will be able to fly like them." The butterfly poked her head out of the cave and actually saw dots that looked like butterflies flying in the moonlight. She approached them and observed a group of creatures that, in addition to being dark-colored, had bodies covered with something that looked like wool. "Hello," they greeted her. "Are you an angel?" "An angel?" She responded again with surprise. "Yes," they insisted. "We understand that angels have those colors. We only live in the night, and when the moon rises, we get together to play." The butterfly realized that she was indeed different from them. Their bodies were plump, and they had smaller wings and legs. "Oh no," the butterfly exclaimed with sorrow. "In no way am I an angel, just different. I live by day, and the sun gives me these colors. You live at night, and the moon dresses you with those colors. It's just a matter of taste," said the butterfly, stuttering a little, uncertain of how to explain their differences. "Ah, and how is the day?" inquired the night butterflies. "It is difficult for us to be awake when there is sun, but do you think that if we make an effort to rise with the daylight, we could change our clothes for more colorful ones?" "I don't think so," the butterfly responded. "What is important is not how we see ourselves, but to be happy with what we are. The worm that I found in the cave, for example, would like to be one of you, but everyone has to be happy according to the Creator's plans." "Oh," the butterflies of the night exclaimed with surprise. "Do you know that nasty worm? We have told him that he can fly, but he does not want to. He is a lazy guy. Take him as a present. Take him away from us," laughed with mockery the creatures of the night. The butterfly realized that she was there with a higher purpose. She remembered her own fears, her painful transformation, and returned to the cave to comfort the caterpillar. She approached him thoughtfully and looked at him tenderly. "You have returned," exclaimed the caterpillar, very happy. "You went away flying so fast that I thought you hated me." The butterfly began to tell him her own story about experiencing ridicule and the fear of rejection. "Wow, what a story," whispered the caterpillar. "Do you know? I also feel strange. I do not like to live crawling because my tummy hurts." The butterfly gave him the news that he was not really a caterpillar, but a butterfly of the night, the only thing that he still did not know it. The caterpillar laughed. "A butterfly of the night, wow! You have a good sense of humor. I do not doubt it. You are an angel, and you have made me feel happy." The butterfly told him to close his eyes, to rest, to imagine that there were wings inside of him, that his body was changing little by little. The sweet voice of the butterfly caused the caterpillar to fall into a deep sleep. A short time later, the butterfly was also pleasantly asleep, waiting for the new dawn. The next day, the sunlight woke her up with delight. Great was her surprise to see that the caterpillar was no longer a worm, but a cocoon that lived his own transformation on the quest to win his wings. Satisfied, she left the place knowing that she had done a good deed. Sometimes, she thought, we just need someone to give us a few words of encouragement to improve our lives. She happily repeated the same phrase several times. Chapter 6. Blackbirds. The butterfly followed her path, inspired by the beautiful, fresh, and fragrant morning. She kept flying and flying until the green mountain slopes were left behind, and she entered an area she did not like. The vegetation turned yellow, dark, bare trees appeared more often. The afternoon fell, and the butterfly knew she had to rest somewhere. The land looked a bit desolate, but following the route of the river, She decided to stay near the water, hidden in some bushes that still maintained their greenery. The night fell quickly. The moon still radiated light and gave her some comfort. Many strange sounds began to fill the atmosphere. The sky was covered with bizarre beings that terrified her. Even though she tried to go unnoticed, she was discovered by a huge rat. His menacing red eyes shone like two burning coals. He approached the butterfly and, observing her many colors, realized that she was not from that area. The rat got closer. The butterfly did not move her wings, trying to go unnoticed. "Do not fear me," the rat spoke with a peaceful voice. "I only eat cereals, fruits, and grains. My race decided to be vegetarian a long time ago. The only enemies here can be the black birds of the dark night." The butterfly sighed with relief, intrigued about the black birds of the dark night and their strange long name. She wanted to know more. "Yes," the rat said, "this land before those birds arrived was just as beautiful as the one you met on the slopes of the mountain. All the animals and plants lived in harmony. Food was abundant and we felt safe, but everything changed with the invasion of the blackbirds of the dark night." The butterfly listened attentively. Any information could help her to reach her destination. The butterfly confided to the rat that she had to reach the top of the mountain. It was a date with destiny, she proclaimed. The rat lamented that her trip was impossible. "Unless you can hide your colors, you are easy prey," he said with an anguished tone. "You are too bright, and even in the day, when those hungry birds sleep, they could hunt and eat you." The butterfly would not give up. Her spirit had been strengthened enough to face even death. "I have to arrive no matter what I do," she said. The rat, realizing the bravery and tenacious desire of the colorful creature, decided to help her. "Come with me," he said softly. "Flying?" asked the butterfly. "No," answered the rat. "It is very dangerous. We will travel through the tunnels that we use. It is the only safe way to reach my home." The butterfly began to follow the rat with much effort. Sometimes the spaces were so small that she had to crawl. The rat waited patiently. Without knowing where and how, she followed the rat, her new friend, to a very large cavern. "This is where we all live," the rat told her. "You will meet my wife and children. No doubt it will be a big surprise for them." Indeed, when she arrived at the cave, all the rats were amazed. They did not believe that there could be a being with so many colors. It had been a long time since the flowers had disappeared from those lands, and they had forgotten even the names of the colors like red, green, violet, pink, yellow, golden. Only the names like gray, brown, black, blue remained in their memory. The reception she had was like one of a hero. The rats jumped with joy because they believed in a prophecy that had already turned 100 years. It had been given by a wise rat, the last to remember the name of colors. The prophecy stated, "When a rainbow of colors arrives flying, the old world will be dying, and anyone who helps the sparkling being will be honored as a king." The old rats congregated to decide if the arrival of that creature was the one prophesied by their ancestors. All had to agree, but the vote was secret. After a short debate, they concluded that the creature fulfilled the necessary requirements and that it would be urgent to help her. The survival of the rats hinged on the success of her journey. The land had stopped yielding enough food, and they were trapped in a precarious existence. They called the butterfly and gave her a new title, Great Flying Butterfly Ambassador of the Honorable Rats. Seeing herself in that position gave her more enthusiasm to continue her search. Now she was aware that many beings depended on the success of her journey. Inside the cavern there was a party. Big and small rats celebrated the arrival of the flying butterfly. The elders created a special commission to help her reach the top of the mountain. She was now a representative of the community, a special personality. They consulted among themselves and concluded that the only way for the butterfly to make this journey was by removing the colors of her wings, perhaps covering it with a dark color so that the fearsome blackbirds would mistake it for one of the moths. Birds do not like the taste of these creatures, especially their fuzz. Their form and flavor disgusted them, and over the years they had learned to ignore them. The only problem was with what to cover her colorful wings. The spiders, neighbors of the rats and with whom they got along very well, offered to weave a new dress. "Do not," said the oldest rat. "The color of your thread, although soft and light, are silver. She will look just as luminous." Therefore, thanking the spiders for their good intentions, they decided to look for another alternative. "Oh," said one of the young adventurous rats when a bright idea came to his mind, "on the other side of the dry forest there is an old gnome who lives alone. Every day at the same time he makes a fire to boil water and drink tea that keeps him healthy. Then he extinguishes the fire, and the remaining pieces of coal can be used to create a black powder that could cover the butterfly." The idea had unanimous approval, and the chief rat authorized the young rat to be the guide of the expedition that would be full of dangers, because the gnome had a fierce cat that liked to nap close to the fire even when it was out. Meow, how warm, feels good. Meow. He enjoyed rolling in the ashes. The group of young rats drafted a plan. They would have to dig 2 tunnels, one that ended up under the extinguished fire, and another one that will be few feet away from it. One of the fastest rats would come out of the tunnel that was far away to draw the attention of the cat, while the others would open a hole just below the coals. At the same moment that the cat chased the rat, the other ones beneath the ground would take a piece of coal. They knew that a single regular-sized coal would be enough to completely cover the butterfly. The plan was carried out. The rats left at dawn to dig 2 tunnels and waited for the gnome to make his tea. They quickly realized that the cat in the past had had a reputation for ferocity, but now he no longer was fast enough to run and catch them. Too much eating and sleeping made him fat. His whitish appearance due to rolling in the ash was cause for laughter for the young rats. One of them even had the audacity of pulling his whiskers. The cat cried and took refuge with his master. All the team triumphantly came back home with a very good piece of charcoal and began to transform it into a fine powder. They did some tests and were happy seeing how the colors of the butterfly disappeared. Now they had to think what would be the best time to cross the rest of the dry forest and reach the high area where the blackbirds of the dark night did not dare to fly. The weather there changed too fast. Sometimes it was humid, other times it cooled suddenly, and a thick fog covered the area that could confuse even the most experienced traveler. In the past, many who had wanted to reach the top of the mountain disappeared. The confusion created by the changing environment was so extreme that some lucky decided to return while others unfortunately ended at the bottom of a huge ravine. The plan was already designed. A group of rats would travel with the butterfly to get her out of the dry forest. She would have to fly out, and they would watch her from the ground. They chose the night when there was no moon. A vigilant rat observed the sky. The black birds of the dark night were difficult to detect. Only the keen sense of one rat could recognize small changes in the environment that indicated the presence of those beings. They walked quickly. From time to time the group stopped to find their way and detect if any bird was close to them. Everything was going perfectly, so they traveled all night, and almost at dawn they were on the border of that even more dangerous zone. Exhausted, they rested under a bush. The butterfly was feeling safe. The group surrounded the butterfly, still covered with black dust, and wished her luck. All of them said goodbye and left. Chapter 7. Close encounter with death. The butterfly began to fly right above the ground. The weather in that place was really strange. A fine rain began to fall, washing off the fine coal powder that covered her body, and her wings shone again. The rays of the sun created a magnificent iridescent effect on her wings due to the thousands of fine drops that floated in the atmosphere. Her appearance was truly magical. She decided to rest on the only red flower that seemed to have sprung out of nowhere. She began to dream as if remembering good times, although in her distant past she never had them. In her dream, she was flying over a vast field of flowers with a group of other butterflies. Immersed in that contemplative state, she did not realize that a black bird of the dark night was watching her from afar, even if it did not dare to enter that part of the mountain. The butterfly was barely approaching the high zone in the mountain, and it was common for birds to roam around the periphery, looking for disoriented victims. Her brightness was attractive, and the bird was hypnotized by her iridescent colors, which had long ago disappeared from the dry forest. The bird approached her very carefully. The butterfly was still asleep, and at that moment she could have lost her life in the claws of the monster and never would have even noticed it since she was completely engrossed in her dream. The bird of the dark night got close enough to eat her, but a dilemma arose in his mind. What is more gratifying? Watch the show of light and color or eat her in a single bite? Do I eat her or do I not? Do I eat her or do I not? The bird continuously turned its head from side to side while observing the butterfly in silence. Finally, his wild nature prevailed over her beauty, and lifting his neck and opening his huge beak, he launched towards his prey. A microsecond before death claimed the butterfly, a brave rat with sharp teeth fell onto the neck of the black bird, and both rolled on the ground tangled in a fierce fight. The rat was young and agile. It seriously wounded the bird, which fled terrified. The butterfly had barely noticed what had happened. The young rat, sensing danger, had decided to return, arriving at just the right time. "I think it would be better if I accompanied you," the rat told her. "I would not like you to fail in your mission to reach the top," he said, remembering in his mind the prophecy. "When a rainbow of colors arrives flying, the old world will be dying, and anyone who helps the sparkling being will be honored as a king." The grateful butterfly accepted his help. "Two are better than one," she thought. "I'll explore the air while he scans the land, and without allies advancing would be more difficult," she thankfully reflected. Chapter 8. The Witness of Time. Both departed with great caution. The advice not to deviate from the river had been of great help because several times, when a thick fog enclosed them, the pleasant sound of water was their only guide. They began to advance uphill. Nevertheless, the river became narrower and the mist remained. They continued their way with great persistence until finally the weather improved, the fog vanished, and before them appeared a great wall made of ancient rocks that seemed to be witnesses from when time was born. They were old and magnificent. At that point, the small stream of water that they followed disappeared underground. The huge size of those great monoliths intimidated them, and the largest prevented them from continuing their journey to the top of the mountain. They explored the wall and did not find any visible entrance. Desperate, they remained still and preoccupied trying to find a solution. The butterfly thought that if perhaps she spoke to the rock would hear her. The butterfly would tell her story, her adventures, and how close she was to death. She climbed as high as her wings allowed her to try to discover the heart of the ancient being. Already tired, she found a gap, imperceptible to others but not for her. She remained silent, attentive, trying to hear some sound. The rock has to have a heart. Everything that God created, because emerged from him, has awareness, life, she thought. Confident, without knowing if the rock could hear her story, she began recounting her adventures. Sometimes she felt sad, other ones happy. Time passed and the sunset fell like a delicate orange petal on top of the distant mountains. The butterfly could see the sleepy sun hiding on the horizon, and a feeling of loneliness filled her soul. She didn't let her anguish get in the way and continued telling her story. When finished, tears filled her eyes, and without realizing it, they fell and moistened the hard surface of the rock. Surprisingly, and if like a dream, she thought to hear a sound, at first low, thump, 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 until she clearly understood that it was a heartbeat. The rock was waking up from a long sleep. A small quake scared the rat that was still waiting beneath without knowing what was happening to the butterfly. The giant stone came alive and, delicately taking the butterfly in his hands, raised her to admire her wings. "You are so beautiful," said the rock, smiling. Thank you, and thank you for waking up, answered the butterfly, noticeably very happy. Your story impacted me. You have managed to wake me after eons of time. Your sincere words made the almost impossible feat in the past. Others have tried to climb me without success. They wanted to destroy me. To get me out of their way, they used anger. Brute force, but when I didn't even move an inch, they cursed or screamed with frustration. They did not realize that my roots are deep. I support the whole mountain. I am the favorite son of Mother Earth. In me exist hidden treasures that only few can discover or see. Thank you, the butterfly repeated again. How could you have heard me? I'm so small. You are probably small, the rock answered, but your soul, your sweetness, and especially your persistence to reach the top of the mountain motivated me to wake up. You do not have to be big to achieve great things, he said, encouraging her. The rat, because of his good sense of orientation, easily found the butterfly. He stays away fearing to interrupt the conversation. The rock, however, had long discovered him. Come closer, the rock said. You are a worthy companion. Your loyalty, sincerity also has no limits, and the butterfly could not find a better ally. The butterfly and the rat were happy. The rock described the road. Climb a little higher. Above my heart you will discover a small tunnel that I have opened only for you. This will take you to a huge cave. There, you will find a deep hole that seems impossible to cross. But there is hope, even in the midst of darkness. The sleepy rock was silent again. It would certainly take thousands of years for it to wake up, unless someone sweet could make the heart of the giant stone vibrate again. Chapter 9. In darkness there is hope. They went through the tunnel just as the ancient rock had said, and they arrived at a huge cavern. Light barely filtered from above. They knew that they would have to cross the enormous black abyss that stood between them to reach the other side that had an exit towards the top of the mountain. The butterfly had wings and could risk flying, although there was also the possibility of taking other tunnels that would take her further into the earth. The rat, on the other hand, had the ability to smell fresh air even in the midst of the darkness, but the abyss seemed unfathomable. Carefully they began to descend looking for perhaps a bridge, if it existed. The butterfly decided to be close to her friend riding on his back. The ground was slippery, and the young rat walked with caution. They reached a point where darkness was so immeasurable that they stopped on their tracks and a feeling of coldness filled the air. Suddenly, without warning, the rat slipped and the butterfly was left in the air listening to the lamentable cry of terror of the rat falling uncontrollably. The paralyzed butterfly realized that her loyal friend had disappeared into the depths of the cave. What would she do without his help? Then, breathing deeply and filling her heart with courage, she decides to rescue him. Even though she was almost blind by the darkness, she began to descend with faith and determination. After a long time carefully going down the cave and sometimes hitting her delicate wings against the walls of the cliff, she perceived in the background a faint bluish light. She descended cautiously. However, she felt like instead of going down, she was flying towards a sky full of stars. This vision intrigued her. She also heard the sound of drops of water falling from somewhere. After reaching the bottom, she was immediately surrounded by little lights. They were fireflies that shone like stars in the night. "What are you doing here?" asked, all at the same time, like if the group were only one person and one voice. "I'm looking for my friend who slipped from the top," she answered. "Oh, he definitely lost his life," they answered again in unison. "No," said the butterfly full of hope. "I know he is very strong and agile. Help me find him, please." The fireflies got closer to shone like the sun. The light was good enough to see around. In her proximity, she noticed drops of water falling from the top of the cavern, forming an incipient river. She moved in that direction and saw the rat lying on the side of the stream, totally unconscious. She quickly helped, giving him some air, flapping her wings. The rat slowly opened his eyes to finally get up. "Are you okay?" asked the worried butterfly. "Yes, just a little tired and a little hurt." In my descent, I was able to use my claws to stop the free fall. Do not worry. I'm used to do this. It's my favorite sport, he said jokingly to ease the butterfly's worry. The curious fireflies approached him talking with admiration. Very few could survive a fall like this. No doubt that you can also fly, they repeated innocently while shining with delight. The river that it wasn't a real river, but just a puddle of fresh water urgently called them repeating. Drink, drink. The butterfly recalled the conversation with the river at the beginning of her adventure. He used the same words. Oh, so, this is the place of your birth, exclaimed the butterfly. Yes, answered with a child's voice. The drops that you see nourish me, is the essence of my mother who helps me grow strong, talking with trouble when pronouncing few words. Take a little bit of my water. It gives you vitality. Here is better than ever. I am the water that gives life, he said, smiling innocently and babbling as a baby at the same time. Both drank a little of that liquid that radiated energy, and as if by magic the rat regained his health and the butterfly shone as bright or more than the fireflies, realizing that the river's water was the only sustenance of their saviors, the fireflies. The butterfly remembered the wise words from the giant rock. Even in the midst of darkness there is hope. Chapter 10. A Friendly Spider. The challenge now was to ascend again by those slippery rocks. The fireflies traveled with them, guiding their way with their light. The butterfly and the rat completely recovered and were in good mood. The rat could feel the fresh air coming from the top of the mountain. They came out of the dark abyss and rested on a platform which was subtly illuminated by a hole that was the exit of the cave. At this point, her luminous friends returned to the puddle of water, since fireflies could not live without the baby river, since he was their only source of life and sustenance. Fireflies in return provided him with company, since the baby river needed lots of attention, like any small child. Good luck, the fireflies shouted at them as they flew away, forming a magnificent heart of light. The two adventurers had to analyze the safest way out of the cave. The rat noticed an old huge spider on one of the rocks, and he approached her to talk, knowing that many years ago the two communities had become allies. The spider did not give importance to the presence of the rat. She was more interested in catching a fly that roamed around. Lady Spider, the rat insisted, could you help us get to that opening? What for? She finally answered. Well, we have to get to the top of the mountain, my friend. The butterfly has an important mission to fulfill, he loudly explained, since the spider, due to her advanced age, had hearing problems. The butterfly was waiting the results of the negotiation of her friend. She did not want to get involved, respecting the relationship of many years between both nations. Listen, Mr. Rat, she said, these rocks are very slippery. Only we are experts in moving on these walls. Without my feet, no one could climb. Then lend me your feet, the rat asked jokingly. Oh, jumped the spider, imagining living without her feet. It is true that I have 8, but I love them all equally and could never give you any. I need them, replied the spider, a little scared. The rat insisted. Please help us. I know that you have experience walking these caves, and you could imagine a good plan. The spider remained quiet to finally tell him, maybe I can knit some shoes with my special thread. I am an expert in fabrics, did you know? There is no one in my city that does a better job than me, the spider expressed with great pride. But lately I feel that I lack energy. Age is affecting my health, and my legs are not like they used to be. The butterfly finally intervened, believing to have a solution. What about if I get you some medicine? She said, remembering the healing properties of the water, but also meant going down again and somehow bringing some of the liquid. The spider thought it was a fair exchange. The rat objected to the butterfly because descending represented a dangerous journey, but he was also aware that with the shoes that the spider could weave it would be much easier to climb the slippery rocks. The butterfly set to work, found a leaf that had fallen from the top and had the shape of a container. She knew that even just a drop of water would be enough to heal the lady spider. The butterfly descended again. It still retained in her body the light from drinking the healing water, and the way back was much easier. When reaching the bottom of the cave, the fireflies were very happy. "Where's the rat? Where's the rat?" they asked with excitement at the same time. The butterfly understood that for them, the rat had become a hero. "I'm just coming back for some water," she told them. The stream heard her and again shouted, "Drink, drink." She gratefully drank and put some water in the leaf to take it to the spider. The fireflies accompanied her until they felt comfortable and said goodbye, this time forming a double heart of light. The butterfly returned and the spider drank the precious liquid, and miraculously her body rejuvenated. Her eyes became alive, and the arthritis that bothered her completely disappeared. Quickly, she went to work weaving the shoes for the rat. The butterfly would travel again riding on the back of her friend to stay together. The spider gave the butterfly a beautiful fabric so that she would not be cold. "As you climb, the temperature drops," she said with a wink and smiling with gratitude. Both departed very well equipped. Indeed, the shoes made of that special thread allowed the rat to adhere to the surface of the rocks easily. He climbed and climbed following the light of the opening until finally both arrived at the top of the mountain. Chapter 11. The end of the journey. Before continuing their journey, the first thing they did was to take a deep breath. Both enjoyed the fresh air, the amazing colors of the forest, and the variety of trees at the top of the mountain. They were definitely there, a place that radiated peace and joy. They discovered a path that was pleasantly waiting for them. They trusted their intuition and followed it. As they walked, they found on both sides of the path a large number of animals of all kinds. They all rested, ate, or slept in the luscious green forest. They also observed what appeared to be a city of humans. The buildings were tall with white walls and decorated with many details of vibrant colors. They knew that was the place to go. When reaching what it looked like a castle, they saw a beautiful entrance. It was a large door that was made of other smaller doors of different sizes. From a tiny little door to the largest one, as in a set of Russian dolls, perfectly aligned to be open according to the size of the visitor. They approached it with curiosity, and in front of them appeared a pixie who greeted them warmly. "Welcome," he told them. "You finally arrived." "Are you waiting for us?" the butterfly asked. "Of course," said the tiny being, flamboyantly dressed. "When someone puts their eyes and heart in this mountain, the great master of dreams warns us, and we make all kinds of preparations for the reception." The butterfly did not want to ask more. The rat either. The pixie opened the smallest door of all to let them pass. Immediately both entered a long corridor. The pixie took them to some rooms to rest. To the rat, the pixie assigned something similar to a barn packed with the most appetizing cereals. To the butterfly, a room with a beautiful garden blooming with a variety of flowers and nectar of different flavors. There was chocolate-flavored nectar, another strawberry, mango, etc. The pixie let them rest, but not before telling them that the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning, they would have to go to the main square where they would be officially welcome. They rested fully after a difficult, risky journey with little food. 2222. A trumpet called, cock-a-doodle-doo. The rooster sang as a clock alarm, waking up all the residents. When they got up and went out into the hall, the rat and butterfly realized that they were not the only ones marching towards the plaza in front of the main building. They walked to a very wide space where beings of all kinds had gathered to listen to the great master of the dreams that was hardly awake. The master, yawning a little, greeted the group. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," everyone answered. "I don't doubt that many of you just arrived, and I know that you also have many questions, and it is my duty to give you answers. As you were told at the entrance, I am the master of the dreams. To be honest, I don't really sleep much, and at night it is when I work the most. Anyway, each of you had a dream," he continued, "but is a special dream. I would call it a longing, and it was to reach this place. When that longing arises in you, immediately communicates with me, so I know of your arrival. That longing is not any thought. It is something that comes from the depths of your heart, something so strong that you would not mind losing your life to achieve it. Everyone listened carefully. The butterfly had lived it and knew what the great master was talking about. The rat had a longing acquired by the desire to help the butterfly, but it was also just as valid. Now, he continued explaining to the newcomers, each of you will be assigned a guide who will take you to other paths until you finish your journey, he said, yawning loudly to finally falling asleep on his bed. The night was the day, and the day was the night for the great master. The butterfly became restless. Where will we go? She asked herself. Two beings approached them. Until that moment she had not separated from the rat, but her intuition told her that for both was the end of the adventure. The rat's guide was another pixie, but with rat features. The butterfly had a fairy guide with huge wings of many iridescent colors similar to the butterfly. Now each of you will follow different paths. We're told the two have fulfilled a great mission, but your fates are different. The butterfly did not understand and asked to clarify more. First, you may want to hear what we have to say to your friend the rat. Usually this is private, but this time we think it is important that both listen as the two of you made this trip together. The rat has to return home, they told her. He will not have to travel alone. We will help him. But it is important that those lands that have been invaded by the blackbirds of the dark night recover their former glory. Long ago we wished that someone had the desire to change the unfortunate condition of the dry forest, but no one had been encouraged. Only the arrival of the butterfly illuminated the mind of the rats, which filled their heart with hope. Although anyone who had had the desire to get to the top of the mountain could have done it, the guide said. Many prophecies are questionable. They are not truly understood. Beings of all type cling to them waiting to be fulfilled, but they become only observers, passively dreaming of the savior who will rescue them. Prophecies are not necessary. Someone who has hope and courage can make a difference in any society. Anyone with a loving heart and courage can become a hero. In the case of the nation of rats, the prophecy could have been fulfilled by any of them, the fairy said, but the rat has a special task. In the dry forest lives a brother, a gnome of the land that has a cat as his only company. He has been waiting for almost a century for this bag that now I deliver to the rat, which contains powders of the lost colors with the purpose to return the dry forest to its former beauty. The rat remembered the old gnome. Now he understood why he was still there. He realized that the gnome was performing an act of love, and hope kept him clinging to the dry forest. He also waited for the brave being that would help him bring back the forgotten colors and transform the dry forest into a paradise. The butterfly and the rat saw each other for the last time. She flew around his eyes, giving thanks. The rat smiled back, and the guide took the brave hero to another room, both disappearing in a flash. The fairy then took the butterfly by the hand and flew up to the very top of the mountain. When arriving, the butterfly saw many trees and many other butterflies clinging to its branches. Watching them, she realized that they all had the same colors. Surprised, she turned her head to the fairy, and she gave her back a silent signal indicating that they were her sisters, her true family. "But they are so many," exclaimed, feeling her heart beating hard, but happy at the same time knowing that she wasn't alone. The fairy took her to one of the biggest trees. Hundreds of butterflies hung from the branches, covering it completely. It seemed that it was a tree that had butterfly wings instead of leaves. The fairy lovingly explained, "All of them, just like you, felt the desire to reach the mountain. This is where all of you were conceived, although not everybody followed the same path. For some, it was easier to return, while others had more challenges. But among all, you experienced the hardest path. You are a princess of courage, and for many centuries, everybody will remember your journey. Most of your sisters and brothers find love in this place, the partner that makes them feel complete. It was this desire for love that drove you to reach this place, although you did not understand it. From all the forces in the universe, the impulse to find that special companion is one of the most powerful." The butterfly silently understood what the fairy was explaining. In front of her was her final destiny, or perhaps a new beginning. The fairy disappeared and left her alone with her thoughts. The butterfly flew around the magnificent tree, feeling affection for all creation. Indeed, she felt complete. She stood on the highest branch to witness the wonderful sky and the majestic mountain. She breathed joy and felt an inner peace as she never had experienced before. She knew she was back home. Far away in the depths of the sky, she saw another winged being arrive. Its tonalities of colors and shape indicated that it was a young and handsome male butterfly. They looked at each other, and a spark of love emerged immediately between them. They approached each other, danced in the air, and their hearts melted forever. The end.